Returning to our top story, and ASIO has issued a warning on Australia's security status, exposing foreign plots to kill Australians. Joining me now is the Executive Director of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Justin Bassi, who has previously served as a National Security Advisor to Malcolm Turnbull during his Prime Ministership. Good morning to you, Justin. Thanks for your time. What's your take on this?
Good morning, Holly. Well, it was a slightly different speech to his previous five, and I think it reflects the fact that unfortunately for us, the world is less safe than it has been in the previous 5 years. The Director-General was telling us that there are multiple fires happening around the world and they're happening simultaneously, whereas previous years, previous generations, we've had one crisis or one threat happening at once. We've got war in Europe, Putin's war on Ukraine, we've got the Middle East conflict, we've got China being more aggressive in the South China Sea and over Taiwan, and all of these issues are impacting us domestically here in Australia. And so I think it was a brave but a very necessary decision for the Director-General to declassify some parts of his classified threat assessment, showing Australia what those threats were out to 2030.
When we talk about the targets here in Australia, I mean, it's usually a clear shortlist of suspects who are behind these kind of threats. But who is ASIO referring to overseas, and who are the targets here?
Again, I think one of the really interesting parts of the Director-General's speech was that he was saying that there are now more threat actors, more countries, more non-state actors who are acting against Australia's interests than we've ever had before. It's not like in World War II, where it was clear we're up against Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, through the Cold War, Soviet Union. Post-Cold War, it was Islamist terrorism. Now there are multiple threats. There are threats both online and offline. Clearly, the Director-General name-checked a few countries. He named Russia and what Russia is doing through Europe. He named Iran. The Director-General didn't name-check China, interestingly, and it is still a fact that China is Australia's, as it is most of the democratic world, the number one security threat. But the reality is that there are multiple countries, largely China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, as well as those non-state actors who are using cyberspace to really undermine both our interests, our way of life, and to really attack our whole system of government.
It's very concerning on a number of fronts, and you mentioned China there too, and we'll also speak about, the Chinese warships that have been spotted off Australia's coast. I mean, they haven't technically broken any law yet, but it's still a cause for concern. It's not normal behaviour. Justin, you previously served as a National Security Advisor to Malcolm Turnbull. What would you advise the current government to do right now?
I think most importantly, it is actually to heed the words that Mike Burgess said last night. Really important to recognise the threat. I think really one of the strongest lines or parts of the speech was towards the end, where Director-General Burgess says that the only way and the best way to counter these security threats is by recognising them. He said we can't ignore them, we can't act like they're inconvenient. We have to address them front on, head on. And importantly, why I'm such a supporter of these annual threat assessments being public is that particularly in our digital world, there's no way for governments to keep these threats secret. Transparency is important. Things have to be kept classified. Some things have to be kept classified, of course. But on the whole, we need the public to come along the journey with us, which means being upfront with them that there are threats. And actually, by being upfront, we can give them confidence that the government and the system and the intel community like ASIO have our safety and our security as their top priority.
Justin, you mentioned before, of course, we have these meetings every year and they're never good. But as you mentioned at the start of this chat, that this one seemingly was a lot worse than the others. It's good to tell people about this, but of course it stokes fear, understandably, in the community. What should people be looking out for?
I think it's really important that the aim of these annual threat assessments is not to stoke fear. It's the reverse. In fact, not knowing what is going on, and uncertainty is what stokes more anxiety and fear. So the aim and the objective, and I think what is an important part of these speeches, is to keep people alert, keep them forearmed with what the threats are, so they can be more alert to it, more alert to the politically motivated violence that we're seeing, more alert to extremism and the potential for terrorism, more alert to the fact that some countries and foreign intelligence regimes are trying to harm us. So it is about giving us as much information as we possibly can, arming us with that knowledge so that we can protect ourselves and protect those people around us.
In one aspect, yes, but living on high alert is not the Australia we know and love. But do you think that the integrity of the upcoming federal election is at risk here? Is that a concern for you?
I think, again, the Director-General said that it was the upcoming election. He specifically referenced it, very important to the security community. The Australian Electoral Commission does a really marvellous job, provides people with confidence. And in fact, I think it is regularly the institution around Australia that has the highest level of confidence in the public. So I think we can be confident that we have these issues in hand. But the key is neither to ignore these threats or be complacent. And that's why I think we need to be open about what the threats are, not to drive anxiety. Actually, it's to bring all of us along. And that's why you mentioned the Chinese warships, Holly. I think if I can quickly mention those, I think the Deputy Prime Minister's language in response to that has been absolutely spot on, just as the Director-General's was last night about the threats he was referring to. But the Deputy Prime Minister today has said this is absolutely unusual activity from the Chinese warships, but it is not illegal. They're in our EEZ, but they're not in our territorial waters. So we have to make sure in that case that we are alert to the issue, but we're not so alarmed and we don't condemn what is legal behaviour, because we have to ensure that we promote what we want, which is freedom of navigation of the seas, so that when there is a breach, we can then go in and absolutely condemn that, because China does give us those opportunities because they breach so much international law. But it is important that when they don't, we remain alert and we monitor.
There's a fine line, though, between that unusual behaviour and then breaking the law. And many saying today that the Prime Minister should be coming up in strength against this unusual behaviour at the moment. We do have to leave it there, Justin. And we could keep talking about this because there's a lot happening on multiple fronts, but we've run out of time. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.